Yeah. Okay, welcome back to the show, and I have a special guest today. I have got two men that are in the same game as myself, the old saturated podcast market. So we have Ian Kelly from Dynamos Dozen, I think one of the longest running podcasts in Ireland in terms of pop culture and things like that. And I have James here from Cafe de Rene, one of the biggest wrestling channels on YouTube at the moment. So, gentlemen, pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Me and Ian have done a show before where we talked about his channel. So we're just going to start with you, James. Just how did you get into all this kind of stuff?
Oh, one word: lockdown.
Yeah, same.
I think a lot of people did actually done the same thing. Been following wrestling podcasts for a while. Like I remember finding out about Something to Wrestle. Used to be a fan of that before Pritchard got signed by the Federation, and it's not worth listening to now. But yeah, obviously, like yourselves, been watching wrestling before I could walk to my imagination, and it's something I've always loved talking about. But the thing is, as you grow older, you know yourselves, not many of your friends likes wrestling as much as you.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to engage in a conversation, it's normally my brother. I'll have a conversation with. But when I moved out from home, he basically stopped watching it. The irony being, he started watching it now with AEW. Um, so it was always like I had Twitter and stuff. I used to message people on Twitter and like share opinions. But it was something I always was interested in podcasts, and I think it's getting the confidence to do the first episode. That's the killer. And I think both of you is aware of UTT Rob.
No.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I've been talked to on back and forth on Twitter for a while. Um, but yeah, so I thought so. It was in lockdown. I'm self-employed, but I had to stay at home, so that was boring. So I was at home for 3 months. I'm like, well, I need to do something. So I'm like, right, do I get myself in shape or do I do a podcast? I'm thinking podcast might be a bit easier than
The
getting in
easiest
shape.
thing to do.
Yeah. So I thought, right, I didn't have no equipment. I still don't. I still use my phone, but I am investing in the studio beginning of next year. So hopefully that'll bring the quality of it up. And one of my favorite channels is OSW Review, which I'm pretty sure you would be quite aware of.
Yeah.
Jay Hunter and the boys, absolutely love them. Hilarious. I'd love to meet them one day. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be as good as them, but what can I do? Because I love talking about the old shows. And I thought, right, I love the 90s, that 90s wrestling podcast. I thought, I can't do it by myself. But I thought, if I bring someone in every week, bounce off them and see how it goes. So I remember doing the first ever episode with Rob, which was Rumble 90. And it was audio only. And we tried recording through Anchor.
Yeah.
Anchor is a great for publishing your content, not so much for to record your content on. So it was just like loads of breaks and stuff. So, but it went well. We had a good episode. I started enjoying it, and then I brought in like Mags for an episode. I had one co-host for a few weeks. He was fine, but he had his own channel, non wrestling. It was like Game of Thrones channel, Back Productions, which Kevin I haven't spoke to him now. Wow, for ages. And one thing led to another. I managed to get in contact with Impact Wrestling, started doing interviews, and then I started doing interviews for a bit. Done that for a while, and then came across Rene Dupree and one of my pals, Jonah from Free Rewind Recap Relive. He's part of the channel now as an editor and guest host. He said, "Oh, Rene started doing interviews now." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. I would love to get Rene on the show." Because and I've said this to Rene, I was a big fan of his match against Cena at Judgment Day.
Yeah.
So Jonah said to me, he said, "You two would get along." I said, "Why?" I said, "You got very, very similar attitudes." And we done the interview, went well, and kind of stayed in contact. Our friend of the show, Booker T, had some remarks back then, and we spoke about Goldberg, and he was upset because we spoke about Goldberg. And I said to Rene, I'm like, "Do you want to come back on the show and give a response?" He went, "Yeah." So I gave a response that done well. I stayed in contact, and I was like, said to Renee, I said, Renee, so have you ever thought about doing a podcast? They said sometimes, but I've never really. I've always been busy. I'm like, well, we can do it like this. I'll do the producing, the editing, and stuff. Obviously, you're the face of the brand. We'll do some talking about news at first, and we'll see how we get on. And we started doing that, and we got a bit of response from it. And then we started doing topics, which was doing well. And then we started really finding ourselves when we started doing interviews, but that coincided with Rene going on Chris Van Fleet because I organised that.
Yeah.
And Chris is actually coming onto the show next week, actually. So I'm looking forward to actually speaking to him again because I've interviewed him once and he's a great guy. And that appearance went really well for Chris's channel. I think that episode done like over 30,000 views and went really well for Chris. And it gave us a good boost in subscribers. And we're just having all these guests coming on, and it was great. I can honestly say a lot of the guests we've had on, I've emailed them in the past for my channel, no response. But now I'm part of Cafe de Rene. Oh, they can't wait to come on now. So one thing led to another, and then we brought Paul in eventually, which Paul's been wanted by the fans for a long time, and he's part of the channel now. Talk to Paul every day. He's a good friend now, and yeah, we've just been doing quite well since then. So we've been lucky.
Yeah, it's great to have that face, someone like Rene on, because Ian would be in the same boat as me, like, and I'd be writing to guys and I'd be sending out fucking hundreds and thousands of emails like all the time, probably since I started this. And I'd say the response rate, if I was to pick a percentage, I don't know what you think about this, Ian, I'd say it's about 5%, if lucky.
Yeah, I would say for me, it was a little bit different because I got into like the podcasting side of it, very, very like about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I don't want to bore people with the details, but I originally kind of was more into the radio aspect of stuff. So a lot of people ask me like, oh, what podcast got you into podcasting? For me, it was more of a case of I liked, I was actually more inspired by people like Art Bell and Howard Stern, early Howard Stern and stuff like that, where you just hear the audio and, you have to let the mind do the thinking as to what people's, verbiage is absolutely fantastic when you can't see it. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes I'll listen to Joe Rogan podcast, for example.
Yeah.
And I visualize what way the person is talking, and then you can see it and you're like, oh, it's not as mystical, and being a former pro wrestler, I was like, okay, what if I do a podcast, but I'm going to try and shoot for the stars here, just like Morris and, yourself. And so I just kind of had this idea. I was like, oh, right, Dynamos Dozen. I came up with Dynamos Dozen on the shitter, like, like all great ideas. And I was like, okay. And like literally 5 podcasts in, I had, guys like Bobby Fulton on,
Harley Race.
Brian Blair, but then Harley Race come on, and one of the great things was myself and Harley Race became friends. I became very good friends with Leland, his son, and Harley. So I have a couple of podcasts, in the catalog with Harley Race that's actually very hard for me to listen to now that he's passed. And then on top of that, we got Phil Anselmo from Pantera on, which James, you can Rene and myself have talked for many, many years. I sent him matches back in the day that he critiqued as well. So I kind of had a little bit of an online relationship with Rene back in the day before podcasting was even a thing. So just something simple to try out there. But I remember when I told him, oh yeah, we've had Phil Anselmo on the show, he was like, no way. So Rene marked out for Phil Anselmo on that. So, and I became good friends with Phil Anselmo then, which is pretty cool. But so my kind of early background was more the actual audio version of it. And you're 100% correct. I mean, I started out with what was the first one, Morris? It wasn't Anchor. There was another little app you would get on your phone.
Jesus, man, I don't know. Like when I started this, I just went straight into YouTube. I didn't even upload
Yeah,
anything to
you went
audio
for the
for like
kill.
6 months.
For
I
the
just like,
kill.
yeah, fuck it, I'll go onto YouTube because that's how I like to watch podcasts. I don't really go
Well,
around.
there was
If I'm
another app anyway that
yeah,
was like audio based and it was subscription based as well. But then Anchor came out as the free one. So I said, I'll give that a try and gave it a try. And it's great for audio. But like you say, for if you're recording for visual, it's an absolute nightmare. So that's kind of the way and I was lucky enough to interview some of the people that I never thought I would get to talk to, especially as I said, having done time, in the business on a small scale in Ireland and the UK, fair enough, but still having, worked. So I was trying to come at it from a different perspective. And because I suppose Austin's show was probably the most influential one for me when it first came out, because it was like, shit, that's a guy just talking to guys about the business. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, that was it. Like, so yeah, it's a little bit different. But no, I love your show as well, James. I have to say, I really do. I think Rene is a really interesting guy, and you're a great, absolutely great host, and getting the best out of him as well, which is an art in itself. That's a question I'd have for you, because Morris, you know what it's like. Sometimes you have those interviews where it's like getting blood from a stone, and you're going, "What the fuck am I doing here?"
Moose is my worst one.
Oh, it's a fucking nightmare, man. It happens to the best of us. You get one of those. Like the Harley race one, actually, that Morris mentioned was really difficult because we had actually talked before the record button was even hit for about an hour. And he was talking about, you got to come to St. Louis and we'll get you nice and drunk and we'll have a lot of beers together. And then, like, when the record button hit, you could tell that he wasn't his best. You know what I mean? He was sick and he was finding it hard to remember things. So, like, you kind of, that's where, like, your skills kind of come in, I suppose, as a host, that you got to kind of cover those gaps of silence. And, so.
Yeah, it helps having a good knowledge. I mean, before, especially when he was doing topics, he was going long form on a topic, I would script it. And even when I was doing interviews, I would script it. And it works, and does work for a lot of people. But then, and I'm not bragging when I say this, but I mean, I've been watching wrestling since I've been fucking 3 years. Is that real? That swear?
yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, I watched the interview today with the porn star. Actually, it was great.
It's actually fantastic, by the way. Shout out to Morris. That's brilliant. Lying on the bed.
Yeah, so there's
was
no
naked?
limits here. Yeah. I got to see everything before the red light came on, so to speak.
Sweet.
Morris needed 5 seconds before he went on.
5 seconds.
Sorry. No, 5 minutes. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, she's nice in the eyes. Yeah. So yeah, I've been watching wrestling. Well, there you go, 30 fucking years now, and it's, you just build up all this useless information in your head, and you just, like, I'm a sponge when it comes to wrestling, and you just absorb it all in. And there's people out there who's more intelligent than me when it comes to wrestling, but I like to think I know quite a bit, and it gets to a point then I don't need to read off a script. I can freestyle it with the guys, and because fucking hell, what was we talking about?
Do you have bullet points? Like, say, for example, if you want to bring something up, because I know me and Morris are really similar in this sense.
Yeah.
If you go
bullet
boom,
points.
boom, boom, like this.
Yeah,
that's all.
We don't even do that anymore. Like, sometimes if there's a couple of top topics to talk about, I'll remember it.
Yeah.
And if because me and Jonah, we do the Raw reviews now, we've taken over that. And obviously I'll read a couple of notes like on the matches. We fly through them. But like now, yeah. But now, like when we've got a guest on, so for example, when it's me, Rene, and Paul, I love it because we are just pals now. Especially Rene and Paul have known each other for years. But honestly, I'm not saying, and I've always said this, and they respect the fact I say it. I know I'm not one of the boys.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of interviewers or people who thinks, oh, I'm one of the boys now, I'm a wrestler, but no, you're not. You can be friends with them. but you're never one of the boys. It's weird.
That's kind of worked for me, actually, James. I will say that, if you don't mind me just interjecting, that's kind of worked for me in the sense that when I do my pitch to like a Bobby Fulton, I tell them who I was trained by, trained by Finn Balor, blah blah blah, Paul Tracy, etc. And obviously there's street cred there, but it's like once they know, all right, you've done something, I'll talk to you a certain way versus talking to someone else a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like weird, because I always try to approach this when I first got into it, and it was always my MO to talk, not like one of the boys go, hey guys, blah blah blah, you're in WWE, I was in a gym and Wolftown and Bray. It's I'm not saying like we're at the same level, but like there's a certain kind of respect between people that, okay, you've done time, you know what I mean, you've done time and you're one of the boys. It's like, prisoners no prisoners. It's that kind of way. And I suppose that's why I'm interested to hear your approach, because it's really kind of nice to and refreshing to hear someone as open and honest as you as going, no, I wasn't trying to do that. It was just, I'm being me and you're being you. Same with Morris.
Yeah, I've had them comments like people calls me the UK Conrad.
He's not good friends with me at the moment, I tell you that.
You look pretty in shape to me. What did you say, Morris?
I said me and Conrad are not in the best of terms, I don't think.
He showed me once.
Well, Conrad is actually friends of mine, believe it or not, because he actually helped me out very early on in the podcast, and he still maintains contact. So I'm going to plead the fifth on this one and just sit back.
He showed on me one time, and I'm waiting, and he didn't show up. But Conrad's one of them. He thinks he's one of the boys, and there's a lot of interviews like Sean Ross Sapp. I can't abide. He thinks he's one of the boys. And
man, I was actually, do you know what? I was actually just going to bring that up, and he's the type of guy now that will find this and clip it and tell us how fucking wrong or whatever we are. But I was just reading through, because I was going to bring up my next point anyway on this piece of paper, this magic piece of paper, was wrestling journalism, because me and Ian often talk about this. And I just seen an article, I think it was from Fightful a couple of days ago, CM Punk set to retire. And then what was the article that came out earlier? Just let me read it out to you now that he tweeted. The latest article said, this is another one from 2 days ago. Fightful. CM Punk's dog Larry accidentally injured in AEW altercation. Who believes that? Who believes that?
Apparently he got a tooth. He lost a tooth.
No, I don't believe that. And then today, sources close to CM Punk told me they wouldn't rule out CM Punk wrestling again because they feel he's still got the wrestling bug. So it's completely different stories every day from sources, but no credit for these said sources. That just annoys me.
But the one man that isn't talking is Punk, and rightly so. But then you've got these absolute morons I'm going to fucking bring the hate here. And again, it's Dynamos Dozen at Dynamos Dozen everywhere. Come at me, kids. I'm more than able for it. It's one-sided. It's Meltzer again with these stupid, idiotic tweets. Like today, he's trying to insinuate that his little boyfriend's in AEW. You know what I mean? And that's okay. If they're boyfriends, that's cool. It's a free world. But that they drew more money than WCW back in the day. So he's actually going back on what he goes against to try and validate these idiots that literally do not know professional wrestling. Yes, they're acrobats. They're great. Some of the stuff they do is great. They've got their techniques down. Absolutely. But they are not professional wrestlers. And you know who I'm talking about. And I'll say it, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Hangman Page, they are fucking idiots. Fucking idiots.
No, we're focusing on the journalists here for now.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that there. Yeah. But you got me all hot now, and I gotta respond. But see, Fightful and all these people, that's what I'm saying. they're all trying to be in with the Bucks because there isn't in,
Yeah.
because the Bucks and Kenny Omega, this is why I'm calling them fucking idiots, is because they have a media outlet the exact same way it used to be back in the day. However, back in the day, people used to use the word subtlety and try not to be found out. It's called kayfabe.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you were a real worker, you'd know that, Kenny. Now they're literally feeding them information, and it's just like, what are we doing here? So Punk, again, like an old veteran, is just keeping his mouth shut. To go back on your question there, but not your question, your statement.
Yeah. Do you guys believe that Jericho called him a cancer?
No.
I don't think Jericho's got the balls to say that, but I would imagine he said it to the other guys in the
I'd
locker
say he
room.
said it to someone, just to fit
But
in
not
with
to
the
Punk.
But he did confront Lesnar though that time.
Yeah, but the difference,
So
I
he
think,
said.
is
So he says.
I don't know.
You know,
I'm with James on this. I think, I mean, when did he call him the locker room as he was beating the shit out of the guys?
Okay, so that's just probably another bullshit rumor that isn't true. Then it just comes back to my original point.
I think so.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, like, everyone's entitled to have their opinion, but it's just that some people take some of these websites as gospel, you know?
Verbatim.
Yeah, because when it comes to Meltzer, I'm like, the guy's more than welcome. He's entitled to his opinion, but the thing is, when he states it as a fact and people takes it as fact, it's like, in his opinion, Kurt Angle's never had a 5-star match. I can name 10 off the top of my head.
Owen Hart and Bret Hart was only 3 stars, I believe, at WrestleMania 10, the opening match.
Yeah,
Kenny Omega's at 6.
Yeah, and the funniest one I ever saw, I'll never forget it as long as I live. Someone tweeted to him about the Jericho and Benoit ladder match, Rumble 2001. Great match. It's one of my favorite ladder matches. And he said, yes, it's an underrated match. And someone replied, well, don't you rate the matches? So always gives me a chuckle.
That's genius.
So, but
I salute you, sir, for that. That's brilliant.
I wish I came up with it. Someone else did, but it was hilarious. But yeah, that's the thing. These journalists, and the thing is, now a lot of the wrestlers today are marks, and yeah, I'm just a wrestling fan, but they're bigger marks than us, I would say, and they're on the wrong side of the barricade, and you can tell. You've got your professional still, like an MJF. He's in it purely for the money, and that's what I look at. I look at a guy like him who reminds me of, say, a Kevin Nash, who's in it for the money, because that's what wrestling is. They work the crowd. The crowd doesn't work them. And even JBL, like JBL said, we made so much money from Dave Meltzer. Like, we told him so many so many lies for years. But when I see the likes of fucking Daniel Garcia, and the Wheeler Utah, I'm like, oh, I hope this is a 5-star match, because this is the era I grew up with. I think someone said it best. I forgot what match it was. Might have been an Osprey match. And I like Osprey, but he's a bit over the top. I think he had like a 6-star match or whatever it is. And someone tweeted out, having a 6-star match is great, but people's gonna forget about it in a few weeks. But yeah, the 1992 Royal Rumble match, which I think I got like 3.5 star, will still be remembered. It's still remembered 30 years on. It's the greatest Rumble of all time. And Rock and Hogan, I think it was like a 4-star match, 3-star match, but it's one of my favorite matches of all time, just for how much the crowd was invested in it. So,
well, you think about it, the people may not remember move for move, hold for hold, and the storytelling that went into, say, like a Bret and a Shawn Michaels match, or whatever, at WrestleMania 12. But people remember that scene of Michaels holding the belt and the boyhood dream came true, and it's because it's powerful. It means something to someone. I think I saw Jim Cornette put something up recently where he was talking about literally explaining pro wrestling to a dummy or to somebody that wouldn't know anything about it.
Yeah, I saw that,
absolutely fantastic. And you were kind of going, that's what pro wrestling's meant to be, right?
I was watching WrestleMania 1 last night before I started recording. Before I started reviewing today's the other day's Raw episode, and I'm like, man, I wish I was watching WrestleMania 1 again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. 100%.
it was the body slam match between Big John Studd and Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
And stipulation of the match, Andre's put his career on the line. Big John Studd 15K. You know, big part of the match was just a bear hug, but the fans are in it. It's MSG. Obviously, it's the first WrestleMania, and it's a different time. Kayfabe was, well and truly full. And I still believe you can kind of bring back kayfabe in some sort
Me
of
too.
fashion.
Yeah.
But, John Studd's coming back, and then Andre picks him up, body slam. Fucking crowd goes mental over a body slam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I miss them fucking days, and I've always said it. Like, we can go on a tangent on booking, but there's a place for a company to bring it back. More wrestlers. I was watching fucking. I was on my way to the hospital from youngest this morning, and I just left it on in the car. It was the Dream Team against British Bulldogs for the title, and I think it was a rematch from Mania. And like the first few minutes of the match was just literally headlocks on the ground, and they're selling. And I'm like, and that's my biggest thing. A lot of wrestlers today, it's like when you're playing 2K22, you'll knock them down, they'll row to the outside, or they'll be in the ring and they'll be on the floor for like, a couple of minutes. And as soon as they get up, I can start doing springboards again instead of actually selling through the whole fucking match. So, yeah, selling is a big thing that's missing in today's wrestling. And
That's the biggest problem. The biggest problem.
But it's no, it is what it is. I know people's be like, oh, they're just boomers, or not everything was great in the past. Possibly not everything was great, but and I will say this, and I've always said it. Today's wrestlers are a lot more athletic, and I will always say that. But if they could learn to sell, it could be so much better than what it is. But no one knows how to sell move. And the thing is, a lot of today's wrestlers are trained by a lot of people that didn't make it, like a lot of say lower mid. No disrespect to him, but lower mid card, someone like Brian Myers, for example, and I like Brian Myers, but he's not known as this great worker, but he's training today's group of wrestlers, and same as Sean Spears. And I can't tell you a great Sean Spears match or a Brian Myers match.
No,
I apologize.
The only thing I would say there, like with Brian Myers in particular, don't know him personally or anything like that. I think the fact is you were trained by a star, somebody that actually got to the dance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You were trained by somebody. I mean, like who knew Ace Steel other than CM Punk in his group? It's like when you're trained by someone that actually has the ability to train, because there is some great coaches out there that have never made it. I mean, we have Paul Tracy in Ireland that isn't in the WWE, but good Lord, one of the best personalities. And Morris is obviously a big fan. Lord of the Manor.
Yeah.
We've got Paddy Morrow, who's just celebrated his retirement this weekend, who is a very, very close personal friend, and absolutely love the guy to bits. We started together. You know what I mean? We were trained by Finn Balor. Like, who knew Fergal Devitt back in the day? Let's break the fourth wall there. Nobody knew who Fergal Devitt was. We knew he was going to make it, but nobody else did. So I think the real problem that we have, James, is that there's guys like the elite who literally don't want to actually take advice from anybody, and that's the message that they're sending to the kids now. I don't really have to take advice from that. I already know everything. I mean, like,
wasn't he just? Sorry, I've cut you off. Wasn't he? Because he was in developmentals, wasn't he? Omega. Which one was it?
Ring of Honor.
No, before then in WWE.
Oh yeah,
was he in Deep South?
Yeah, and they didn't. Florida Championship Wrestling.
He was in one of them.
Ohio Valley.
He was in one of them, and I think Harley Race was trying to learn. I'm sure it was Harley Race.
It was Harley Race, yeah.
He was trying to tell him how to do one thing, and he just ignored them. And someone referred to Omega's Happy Feet, and it is. And if you're not going to listen to Harley Race, then well, there you go.
I mean, good Lord. I mean, that's someone who doesn't deserve a place in the business. You know what I mean? Like the part and parcel of the business is that you sit down and you listen and you respect the people that actually, I mean, I'm sure when he was kind of doing this thing in Japan, people like, Balor and stuff like that were kind of going, okay, this guy's pretty athletic and fit and, whatever. But then when you hear stories, that he don't, when he was working for Jim Cornette and Ring of Honor and was pretending that he had an injury that didn't exist, I took a picture from Google Images to say that he had gangrene on his ankle. You're kind of going, oh my God, this guy's a piece of shit. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, and that's exactly what he is. You know what I mean?
Let's bring it back to the podcast and let's bring it back to a happier place.
Yeah.
Let's get away from let's get away from this. This is what the journalists have caused.
Yeah.
These are ratings for you, Morris. We're giving you pearls here.
5 stars. 5 stars.
Just start screaming like JD. I heard that works to get ratings. Just start screaming.
Yeah. Scream.
What's your plans, Ian? Are you going back on the YouTube game? Or are you going to go to the audio, or what's the plan for your channel?
No, we're still on YouTube. I mean, you know me and Noel, who's obviously a mutual friend, and we kind of review stuff now, and I have fun doing that. It's because I've kind of interviewed a lot of the guys that I want to interview, and a lot of it is personal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I can tell you something that's kind of cool. One of my favorite wrestlers of all time is actually Magnum TA. For anyone that doesn't know the Magnum TA story, they should go and check it out. Yep. We've become really good friends, which for me is absolutely phenomenal. But he wants to eventually get into the podcast game and kind of tell his story and do his own thing. But one of the little kind of nuggets of information I can share with you without giving too much away is that there's still something in the works that we're going to be doing together, and I'll be hosting it. And Magnum will have his own platform. So hopefully that gets done sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, like COVID ruined so many things, and it kind of slowed that process down. And they've got a figure line out now where they're kind of bringing out old school figures like Kerry Von Erich and who else is there? Oh my God, there's so many good ones. There's obviously himself, Kerry Von Erich. I think they're going to be doing an Abdullah the Butcher. So it's pretty cool. So they're kind of concentrating on that at the moment. Whereas myself, I'm really looking forward to doing that with him, and that would be kind of where I'm looking at going forward. If I can get the odd interview here or there, we do have a name that I can't mention, but he is a controversial figure. And he's a big guy who used to be on WWE, and he appears on Fox News every now and then. And he tends to hold an NWA title every now and then, without giving away a name. He's agreed to come on the show. He's agreed to come on the show soon. So it'd be interesting to kind of have like a political conversation there as well, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of doing this for fun now, for me as well. You know what I mean? I've kind of you learn that you got to do it for yourself rather than just interviewing random fuckers for the sake of,
like me.
Well, no, but if that's your thing, that's your thing though. Yeah. That's cool because everything has its place. You know what I mean? I'm just speaking from my perspective. I was at that place where I was like, hey, you just put a tweet out. I'm going to fucking interview you. And absolutely. But I'm kind of at that place where, like, I know my audience knows what they like. And as long as I kind of fulfill that kind of my end of the deal and give them something, that's good enough for me,
Yeah. James, if I was to ask you
what I'll wait on that Magnum TA shit as well, because I know that's going to kick up.
James, if I was to ask you, speaking for yourself and Rene, I'm sure you guys probably have chatted this before. Like, who would be your bucket list guest that you'd want to get on Cafe de Rene?
Bret Hart.
Any chance?
Well, that's my bucket list. That's so it's get Bret. In line, motherfucker. I'm here a lot.
I've always said it. If ever I interview Bret, I might just retire from podcasting because it's downhill from there.
I think so.
Don't get wrong. Getting Kurt Angle, that was a big fucking get. Kurt Angle. That was, I was like, fuck, it's Kurt Angle. You know what I mean? I remember speaking to my brother. He's like, where do you go from Kurt Angle? I'm like, great many more like
Bret
higher
Hart.
than Kurt Angle. Well, Brett, or like
Steve Austin.
Kurt, but to me, Steve Austin's like impossible. Like Kurt was kind of impossible.
I don't think Steve
Um,
Austin's impossible. You keep working
No, I
out.
don't. You just got to tell them the right words, don't you?
Yeah.
You got to really pray. You can't have a copy
Yeah.
and paste job with some of these guys.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I'm going wrong. That's where I'm going wrong.
It's true.
But I do. I copy and paste a lot.
I
but-
changed my copy and paste that was 2 years old the other day, so I've got a new copy and paste now.
Well, I just change it every time our numbers are going up. I'm like, yep, right. We're over 13K now. Let's just edit that. Oh, 3.5 million views. All right, let's chuck that in there.
Yeah.
But no, Bret Hart definitely. Yeah, Bret Hart. Fuck, who else? I mean, Austin, obviously. Rock, obviously, big ones. Shawn
Iron
Michaels.
Sheik, surely, right?
Sorry,
Iron Sheik, come on.
Iron Sheik be entertaining. Hogan. I mean, say what you want to say about Hogan, but if you got the opportunity, to speak to Hogan, you're gonna speak to Hogan.
Yep.
Yeah. I got through to Hogan's people there a while ago, and they started talking about these crazy figures, and I was like, I'm in my conservatory, man.
Yeah.
All right, here's one, guys. I've got to go to one for you, right? Because this is going to be surprising for you. What's the biggest number that has been requested from you guys?
Yep.
From anyone?
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Morris, what's yours?
Well, I wasn't told this directly by someone. Well, I was told this by someone close to the man that he wanted 25K for half an hour.
Who?
He Ric Flair.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I got pitched the idea for 15 grand. Okay. From a guy who used to be in the Iraqi war. He was a military veteran. I saw a tweet that he put out and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, man. That sounds controversial. And I was thinking I could, get him on because he's a speaker and stuff like that. And I was like, cool, I'll reach out. All of a sudden, I got all this legislation, this really fucking deep stuff. And I was like, okay, well, check this guy out. 15 grand at the end of it. I was like, dude, I don't even know you. I like the tweet. Fuck off. You think I'll pay Brett 15 grand if I have 15 grand.
Yeah.
Then I'll be invited over to dinner. You know what I mean?
I'll give you
one was I'll give you as clues, you might work it out. Definitely if you go in Ruthless Aggression era, for women that didn't hold the title, but definitely the most popular woman on the roster, it's her.
okay.
Rene had a memorable few spots with her. So there you go.
Okay.
And she wouldn't even do it for Rene, no?
I haven't actually. This was actually for my old channel actually.
Oh well, then you should get Rene to talk to her then.
Oh yeah, I'll get on for free.
Yep.
Just ask Rene. Just ask Rene. Did he do it for her in the first place?
I think her husband was around the corner. So her ex-husband anyway. But yeah, when you get a price like that, I call it a fuck off price. So and if someone's gonna pay it, I'm like, well, yeah, might as well do it. So but when I try to do something similar to yourself, Morris, I changed my channel to it's called Primetime Conversations, and because I thought, right, I've got the wrestling sewed up now with Cafe. I thought I'll try and do something different, and I had some great guests, some people you've had on as well, like Cohen McCaston, some 41. That was great because I love some 41.
Nice guy.
And yeah, very nice, and like Tyson Moore from Alien Ant Farm. Lead singer Bowling for Soup, Jared, and a couple of other people. And but then I got some quotes from some actors and stuff, and I'm like, really? And
you guys need to hook me up with that guy for Bowling for Soup, actually, because my missus is a massive fan of Bowling.
I was supposed to have him on in April, but I think wasn't one of their tours cancelled over here. Some of the guys got COVID or something.
They're playing in December though, next month.
Oh, they're playing in December. I'll send him an email then again because I was in contact with his people before. But
please.
I'm going to be on. I'm supposed to be on Vice TV this month, James. Did I tell you about that?
Really?
Yeah,
Oh
they
yeah, this is
they
interesting.
this is a good one now. So I got like an email from like this producer guy in Vice TV, and I had to just make sure, right, just to make sure this isn't a piss take, I'm gonna have to research this guy and all these details just to make sure no one's taking the piss. So I did anyway. Seemed legit. Wrote back to him. He goes, "Oh, we're looking to license some footage off you for this Vince McMahon documentary." And I was like, "Yeah, cool, no problem." And he goes, "So can we use it?" And I said, "Yeah, but like, are you gonna pay me?" And he goes, "No, we don't really pay for this kind of thing." And I was like, "Well, I know there's like 3 Vince McMahon documentaries being made, so maybe some of the other people might want it." I said, "I've been working now for 2 years straight, putting out podcasts 2 a week every week for 2 years." And I was like, "I'm not going to give you my footage for free," because they're basically buying it off you, you know? So I was like, no,
Yeah.
no, it's not for me. So just hung up the phone then after that. Just was nice enough, just said goodbye. And then like a couple of hours later, they sent me some money, well, a contract for some money to buy the footage. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. But I just wasn't going to give a big TV company in America like my footage for free, basically. But that's the kind of
Yeah.
world you're living in.
Do you know what? Do you know what it is? The kind of world you're living in is like I had Harley and all those boys for free. You know what I mean? Like Phil Anselmo from Pantera, like one of the biggest metal bands, if not the biggest extreme metal band of all time, easily coming on. Now I was lucky because a friend of a friend, you know what I mean, knew who was local to New Orleans, was able to put me in contact with him. And like when I got that text sitting on the couch that day going, yeah, Phil Anselmo said he's going to do it for you. I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy. You know what I mean? That's the biggest market moment ever. Like
Yeah.
that in musical terms, that's as big as it got from me as if I got like Bret Hart to agreeing
Yeah.
to do it. You know what I mean? So like that's what I always said. If like James said earlier, if Bret, come on, he's my look sakes. I've got his I've got the blue colors going on, but that's a Bret Hart little gimmick there. That would be it. You know what I mean? I could gladly go into the sunset and podcasting world and go, right, Morris, you just take the reins now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll appear in your show like this.
I
But
was
but the point I'm making, I think what really happened is that a lot of these old school guys, like for example, I had Ricky Morton on my show.
Right.
You probably heard that one, Morris. It was like very early on.
Yeah.
And I remember like me and him had built up a relationship. And when I asked him on for a return appearance, he asked for $500. I was like, what the fuck? And I think lockdown really showed, you know, a lot of podcasters start coming out of the woodwork. And what really happened was that they start showing wrestlers got to be wrestlers again, and they could just hustle.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening. What you said with voice and all that, it's just hustling. People hustling, thinking, oh well,
Yeah.
you know, you'll be on voice, and guess what? You'll have an opportunity, Morris. You'll be there.
I was going to be flashed up on screen, I think, for 15 seconds, he said, but it wasn't going to be me talking. It was obviously going to be my guest. But
Of course, and you get the credits.
Yeah, I get credits, but I don't think it'd get me any major exposure. Like I was supposed to have a huge wrestling guest on a couple of weeks ago, and Ian knows about that, but that fell through a record label, which I could talk about off camera because I think it might happen soon. But yeah, it's just fucking grinding, isn't it?
It is.
I've been fortunate where I haven't really paid for guests at all. The one person I did actually was Rene, but that paid off. Yeah.
I've done it once through Morris. That's it. I've done it once. Well, not through Morris, in fairness, because Morris had him on first.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well, what's the story? Blah blah blah.
My max is like $50. Like I'm going to pay someone $50 to sit at home on Zoom talking to me for half an hour. It's not really worth much more than that.
No. But I did with Rene, but like I said, that paid off in the long run. So I looked at it as an investment, and me and him jokes about that as well now, because obviously me and him's making money from the channel now.
You'll have to take that 50 quid back, man, out of ad revenue.
Yeah. So
yeah.
But then I know there's people, I won't mention names, but I know some people that does charge, but I've managed to get them on my show for free. But they've been on other people's show who has paid for them, and that's another thing through podcasting. I wouldn't say enemies, but I've met some people. There's some people out there who's quite bitter when you start doing well. When you're beneath them in like subscriber numbers and stuff, they're your best friend. But when you start getting a bit of a following, and you're getting guests who they've paid for, who they've pursued, and you're just getting them on, it's like, oh, they start spreading rumors about you. Oh, you paid for this person, you paid for that person. I'm like, no, I know to talk to people. And that goes a long way. Because that's the thing as well. Like, obviously, you're a wrestler, Ian, but someone like me and Morris, have you ever done wrestling, Morris?
No.
So someone like me and you, okay, we have to send out an invitation, but not sound like a Merc, basically. We are Mercs, we're just wrestling fans, but not like, oh, look at these fucking idiots. Oh, let's see how much I can get out of these. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to present yourself as a professional. And like I said, I've been lucky because I've never had to pay for it, but it was something I had to learn really early on, because even some of my friends used to do podcasts and they still do it. And I'm like, don't do it. I'm like, if you can get away with not doing it, or if you have to, get them to send you some merchandise over to make up for it. Try and get out merchandise and do a competition. Say to the fans, right, subscribe to this, hit the like button, and one lucky winner will win this T-shirt. At least try and get something from it. But I understand why wrestlers do charge for interviews, because, especially during lockdown, if they wasn't wrestling, right, I need to find another way to make money. But yeah, that's something I had to learn really quick. Like, not be a Merc. And don't get me wrong, so I still am. When RVD came on the show, and like, I've spoke to RVD quite well now. We actually get along a bit, which is amazing. But I remember the first time I started the interview before that, and I was using Skype. Skype shit, by the way. And when he popped up the screen, I'm like, fucking hell, this is Rob Van Dam. And I'm a big, massive Rob Van Dam fan, of which I'm guessing we all are. And and that's the thing. Like I said, I try not to be a Mark, but at the same time, I still get excited when we get a guest on. And I think the reason why me and Rene's dynamic has worked well, and I joke about, I'm like, right, Rene, you're the wrestler, you talk like the wrestler, I'll ask the little Matt questions, what people want to look at online, and we joke about it, but it's true. Rene will just have a conversation with them, and I try to, but Rene will throw it to me. Jameson, he calls me. Jameson, is there anything you want to ask him? And I'm like, yeah. And I'll be like, so back in 1983 in this certain date.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's we've learned that dynamic, but yeah, that's the thing with podcasting. Like, OSW, Jay Hunter, I actually asked him for advice. Guy's nice as can be. And the other guy, Wrestling Bios, he's great. He's given me some advice, and he's given me a shout out a few times. And they've always said it will rather take you 10 episodes or 10 weeks to find your groove. And it really does.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Gentlemen, I am pretty much out of time tonight because my kids are awake as normal. They always wake up when I tend to do these things, and not one of them are awake, but the two of them are awake.
Oh no.
So, look, I enjoyed the chat tonight. I think we should do this maybe every few months or something, just catch up and see where we're all at and just have a conversation, and you can rant your frustrations about Kenny Omega as well, Ian.
No, well, I won't need to, because I've chose that my life is much better without Kenny Omega. It's my
I think I might have actually
done.
Yeah. I think I might have actually just got someone booked on AEW.
Excellent.
So I'm excited for this guy.
You could probably work on AEW, man. Don't worry. I'll send you a few little things. Don't worry. I'll send you a little. Just read it. You don't need to train yourself.
I'll give you one more before we wrap up, James. I'm on the media list for AEW, right? Because I tried to get Tony Khan for an interview, and I just went straight in. And obviously he didn't do it, but his team were like, "Oh, we'll put you on the media list." I said, "That's cool." So they sent me a press release. They sent me a press release today, Mike Tyson is going to be on AEW Friday. I was like, okay, whatever. But then they send me invites to the virtual press conferences, okay?
Yeah.
And I've been in five of them, and not once did I get asked for a question. And I'm like, what's the fucking point?
Yep.
And I was actually only thinking about that, Morris, to be fair, because that's probably the best part of a year.
Yeah.
That's happened for you. And I was actually always looking out for that. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, right, if my boy is on, happy fucking days. Happy. Like, going back to what you said, James, be happy for your boys, regardless. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, but not once has Morris been on. And yet, like, you get these fucking idiots. It's just always reserved for these idiots. And
Sean Ross sat from Spiteful. Oh, Denise Salsado.
Yeah,
and
I think that's why Punk actually went. I think that's why Punk actually lost the plot with those guys that day and said, you know what? Fuck you. I'm calling you guys out because you are the problem, not the fucking other guys. And I guarantee you, if you'd have got a Morris on, or a James or an Ian, whoever, but Morris is in there, let him get on and ask a question. Like, I guarantee you he would have had fucking nothing but respect because you would not said anything bad about him.
Yeah, I know Impact Wrestling's a lot smaller, but Impact Wrestling does give the opportunity to everyone to ask a question, and I can respect that.
Yeah.
But AEW, like I said, if you're not a Sean Ross Sapp, Denise, whoever else, you've got that group, ain't it? The Fightful group, and like a couple of others from like fucking Plank Culture. What culture? Who the fuck watches that anymore?
I'll be honest with you. I think it's a fucking joke that there's even a press fucking scrum. Like,
no, I think that was just sent in just to keep someone like me or you happy. Like, that's it.
But it is, in passing, I'll let you guys go. But I personally think it's an absolutely ridiculous idea. It's not real fighting. I understand you're trying to make it look like real fighting, but if you want to make it look like real fighting, present it on your shows.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah. Right, gents, I'm going to tip on, and thanks a million, and I'll send you the guys the clip then when it's up.
100%.
Yeah. I'll put your links underneath, boys, of your channels.
Oh, thank you very much.
And thanks for coming on.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thanks, lads.